I'm selling my Alfa Romeo 4C, so what's going to be a sad day for me could be a great day for you. If you're interested in Alfa Romeo 4Cs, but maybe not my particular Alfa Romeo 4C, I think this video will still serve as an excellent buying guide. So please keep watching. For more information on my Alfa Romeo 4C, on the buying process, on how to submit a video, etc., please check out this video's description. I'll post all the latest information and updates there. This particular Alfa Romeo 4C is no garage queen, but it's an awesome car, and somebody is going to have a blast with it. With about 25,000 miles on the odometer, it's in excellent condition. My loss is your gain. Somebody's going to get a great deal on this Italian beauty, and I'll explain more later. So if you'd like to own this Alfa Romeo 4C, make me an offer. Since I already know I'll be losing money on this transaction, I thought I'd add some fun and excitement to the process. So I'll be evaluating offers based on 3 criteria: a fair price, a good story, and ease of transaction. So what that means to you, my potential buyers, is that it's not just about price. So I won't necessarily sell the car to the person who offers the most, and I won't also necessarily sell it to the person who has the best story. But it's going to be a combination of those 3 factors primarily. There may be other factors that come into play, but those are going to be my 3 primary factors, and I won't know until I hear some offers and some stories and see how things flesh out exactly how one particular offer will weigh against another. In terms of price, I know that the market is a little bit soft right now for sports cars in general. I bought this car 2 years ago for $53,000, and at the time I knew it had some minor cosmetic defects, so I spent an additional $3,000 on paint correction. So all in, I have about $56,000 in the car, and I've enjoyed it for 2 years. Of course, I hate to lose money on these transactions, and part of the deal that I have with my wife that allows me to continue my car buying habit is that it's not an expensive hobby. So up until now, every car that I've bought and sold, I've actually either broken even or made a little bit of money. And I'm not talking lots of money, I'm talking, a couple $100 or something like that. But on this transaction, I'm pretty confident that I'll be losing some money.
Reluctantly crouched at the starting line, engines pumping and thumping in time. The green light flashes, the flags go up, churning and burning, they yearn for the cup. They definitely
But on this transaction, I'm pretty confident that I'll be losing some money, and there are 2 primary reasons for that. Number 1, when I bought the car 2 years ago, the market was still somewhat hot. If you follow the used sports car market, then you'd know that during the lockdown years, the prices of used sports cars just skyrocketed. It was kind of insane. And 2 years ago, it was kind of at the tail end of this, so the prices were still somewhat high, but not at their peak. So I knew that I was paying a premium, but I also knew that I had another car on order, a Lotus Emira, and I wanted to own and enjoy an Alfa Romeo 4C in the interim. So I went ahead and I bought the car. The steering in the Alfa is a little bit stiffer perhaps. The market now is a little bit softer than it was 2 years ago, so that's one reason I think I'll lose some money on this transaction. The other reason that I think I'll lose some money on this transaction has to do with the Carfax report. So when I bought this car, I was very careful. I did not want any Alfa Romeo 4C that had a salvage title or that had been involved in an accident, because this is an exotic sports car. It's got a carbon fiber tub and it's got a fiberglass shell, and so any kind of an accident or physical contact could be pretty devastating, and there could be hidden damage. So I was very careful to buy a car that did not have any of these things. As I was preparing to list the car on Bring a Trailer, I was corresponding with one of their agents, and he was encouraging me to reduce the reserve price that I'd set pretty significantly. And the reason he said was because of damage on the car. And I was like, damage? What do you mean? He says, yeah, the damage report. I said, there's no damage on the car. There's never been a damage report. He said, yes, there is. I said, no, there isn't. He said, yes, there is. And then he sent me a screenshot and it showed minor damage, and I'll share that with you here. And I was perplexed. I was like, how can this be? Because the date on it was 5 years before I bought the car. So it was like 7 years ago. I'm like, how can that even be? I mean, how can they, with good conscience, put a damage report that's obviously going to affect the value of a car onto that report 5 years after it was sold and 7 years after it actually occurred? Anyhow, I was pretty upset. And I started corresponding with Carfax. I logged a complaint. And basically, they did clarify the meaning of that damage report. It's very minor damage, typically cosmetic. Again, I'll share what they said here with you. I want to be completely transparent as I'm selling this car. I don't want anyone to have any reason to come back and say, oh, Pete, you didn't tell me about X, Y, or Z. I'm definitely going to try and disclose to you everything about this car that I possibly can. All the good stuff and a couple minor negatives. So anyway, I got this revised Carfax report, and I just eventually had to accept it, and it's a bitter pill to swallow because I was so careful trying to make sure that this car was clean. But I know what the damage is, and the good news is that it's just superficial cosmetic damage. So what happened was when I got the car, it had some paint damage. And if you looked at it, it just looked like the car had driven through a puddle and a little bit of mud had spattered up onto the car. And this was on the hood, it was on the right fender, and on the right passenger door. And really, it didn't look like anything other than that, which I think is why the previous owner had not corrected it. But it must have been some sort of a solvent because it did eat through the paint. The good news here is that yes, there was paint damage, but there's never been any physical contact with the car, right? So there's no potential that the shell has been cracked or the carbon fiber tub has been cracked or damaged in any way. So this was all just liquid spatter. So based on my purchase price, I was prepared to invest a little bit of money into paint correction. Now, admittedly, this ended up being on the far limit of what I had expected. I thought it was going to be some minor correction required, but it turned out that this went all the way down to the primer level. So we had to take off and completely repaint those 3 panels, and I'll include some pictures here in this video so you can see exactly what was done. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of the damage beforehand. I can show you this listing picture, which is from Porsche Tausen, where I bought the car, and you can tell just looking at it, you don't see any obvious damage. I do have some pictures that I'll also share with you of the car up on the jacks before they actually corrected the paint, and unfortunately it's just not obvious enough. The damage was fairly faint, and again it just looked like a little bit of a spatter of having driven through a mud puddle. So while I don't have pictures of the damage before the repair, I do have pictures of the car as it was being repaired, and of course lots of pictures after the repairs, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I also took the opportunity to correct the scrape under the nose of the car, which is fairly common. And so the car is in great condition, and you'd never know that it had this problem. I wanted to interject a quick note here. I just got back from a service appointment at our local authorized Alfa Romeo dealer. And as one of the techs was checking me in, the Alfa Romeo service manager came out and was just kind of looking at my car, and she squatted down on her knees and was really checking out the front of the car and looking at it very closely, and then came over to me and said, "How many miles do you have on this car?" I was like, about 25,000. She's like, "I'm impressed. The paint looks amazing." And so I kind of explained to her that I'd had to repaint it a couple years ago, but she was actually very impressed with the quality of the paint. So she's seen quite a few Alfa Romeo 4Cs, and she knows that a car with this many miles would typically not look as good as this one does. So the paint really does look very, very good. So while this was a bitter pill for me to swallow, this might mean you get a great car at a great price. As I mentioned, one of the criteria by which I'll evaluate offers is whether it's a fair price. Ease of transaction. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is I need to have confidence that the funds are going to be legitimate and that the sales process will go smoothly and that it's not going to be a lot of headaches for me and that generally there's a good experience for both the buyer and the seller. A good story. So what do I mean by that? Well, it could mean just about anything, but I figure, hey, I've got a YouTube channel, and since I'm losing money on this, I'd like to see if we can make the process a little bit entertaining. So send me a video and make it funny, or tell me why the Alfa Romeo 4C is a special car to you and why you should be the one that buys it. For example, let's just say that your father, Guido Sarducci from the old country, has a specific love for Italian cars and all things Italian. So you've got a special reason for wanting this Alfa Romeo 4C.
And here with the report is our friend Father Guido Sarducci. Father.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Father, I notice you're not wearing your red stripes. Did something happen? You weren't promoted to Monsignor?
Well, it was just postponed a little bit, Jane. I don't know if they're giving me a ring around the bush or what's going on there. I think it's going to be okay. I'm going to be promoted this soon because just the other day I came up with a great idea, and I think they're really going to like it and promote me right away.
What was the idea?
It's called the Shrine Mobile. Shrine Mobile. People just can't afford to drive it to the shrines. So I says to them, where's that old walk on the water spirit? People can't drive it to the shrines. You drive the shrines to the people. I figure you get these old trucks, put the statues on the back, put some rocks around the statues, put some candles on the hood, You get the seminarians to drive it to pay them peanuts.
I don't fool around with no Oscar Mayer wiener.
Have I mentioned how rare and exotic the Alfa Romeo 4C is?
I don't fool around with no Oscar Mayer wiener.
This is really going to be a head turner, and if you like to get a little bit of attention or if you just like to have something unique, this is an amazing car to own. Total global production of the Alfa Romeo 4C was just around 9,000 cars. That is incredibly low. That's much lower than Porsche, than Ferrari, than Corvette, than almost any other exotic car. The Alfa Romeo 4C was hand-built in a Maserati factory. It's constructed around a carbon fiber tub, which is something you only see in Formula One and high-end Ferraris that cost several times more than this car. So this is really a rare and exotic bird, and it turns heads everywhere. To help you figure out what a fair price looks like, I've included some statistics from Bring a Trailer, and I've excluded the Spider version of the car because the pricing of coupes and Spiders can be somewhat different. So what you see on this graph are recent sales of the Alfa Romeo 4C as auctioned off on Bring a Trailer. At this point, I'd like to take you on a little tour of the car, so let's go. There she is. Now this particular Alfa Romeo C is primarily stock. I've made a few modifications, but very minor stuff. So that gives you lots of opportunities to have fun with this car. For example, I added this decal to the roof, but you can easily remove it if you don't like it. I love it. And then if you come down here, you can see that I've added some carbon fiber mud flaps. And that's really to protect this edge of the car because it is prone to getting a little bit of kickback of gravel and things like that. So the mud flaps are great, they help protect the car, and I think they look kind of cool. Okay, other things that I've added are these little seat belt bolsters. I think they're extremely stylish. As you can see, the interior of the car is very clean. Really, I don't think there are any defects to the interior of the car. If you look at the front of the car, in addition to having it repainted, I also had them apply a paint protection film. And so it's really in good shape. There are a couple little nicks to the paint protection film, like here. You can see here a little bit, right? But very minor stuff. That's just bug splatter there. A couple little ticks here. But the paint protection film is doing its job. So it's keeping the car safe. So I know this is something people will always wonder about, so I just wanted to provide more close-up pictures here. The kick plate here, if you look really closely, you can see that it's in good shape. There's actually a clear protector here as well. It's a little bit hard to see, but you can kind of see the edge of it here. So this covers the carbon fiber aspects of the car and help protect it. So there are some scratches to that, but really, that's just in the protective plate. There are a couple of notches here, very tiny little scratches, right, that you can see. Down here, similarly, there's a couple little tiny scratches, very small. And if you look here, there is one scratch, right, which I don't know what that is. Probably someone had a key in their pocket or something like that. But other than that, this interior is just immaculate, right? I mean, the doors look great. I have to say the interior of the Alfa Romeo 4C is luxurious. It is just really plush, and yet for racing purposes, these seats are awesome. They really keep you in your place. They provide good feedback. The bolstering is very nice. And as I've mentioned in another video, also great for a long trip. I'm 6'3", and I had to take a 10-hour emergency trip for a family emergency recently. And the Alfa Romeo 4C would not have been my first choice. It's a 650-mile trip, but because of other things, I had to take this car. And I'm currently suffering from a back problem. I usually wear a back brace just to try and help it heal. And I'll be honest, I got in the car, I stuck a bolster in here, a pillow trying to support my lumbar region, and it wasn't working, I think because the bolster's here. And so I just pulled it out and decided to drive with the seats as is without my back brace on. And 10 hours of driving, 650 miles, only stopping for gas and to take a whiz, I felt fine at the end. My back didn't feel any worse than when I jumped in the car 10 hours earlier. So I have to say, this car is incredibly comfortable to drive on long distances. Now, I will tell you, one of the common things that you will find with these cars is that the hazard button right there, it's made of some sort of a rubberized material. It gets sticky over time as that material degrades. And that was something that I experienced in this car. It's very, very common. I think pretty much most Alfa Romeo 4Cs experience this problem. It's just the type of material they chose. And I looked at all kinds of options. Ferraris have a similar problem. And for those, you can send it off to specialty shops that do this like laser process to I think skim off a layer of the finish. You can order a brand new button, I suppose, although I don't remember anyone specifically mentioning that. This is something I addressed about a year and a half ago, so it's not first and foremost in my memory. But what I did, and it was based on someone else's suggestion, is I put a layer of transparent tape over the button. So it's packing tape, and it's perfect. You really don't notice that it's there. It is not visibly apparent, and it covers up the tackiness. So it's wonderful. I'll try to get a good picture of it here. But I gotta say, it was a simple, inexpensive, and I think elegant solution to a problem that a lot of people suffer with this car. Here's some more interior shots. I have to say I love the design of the Alfa Romeo 4C. Those Italians have a real flair for style and have just done a phenomenal job. There, I'll add some light in here. I apologize, there's a little bit of debris because I do use this car as my daily driver, but it is very clean. It's also super cool that in the interior, you get to see all this carbon fiber, right? So the carbon fiber tub is fully exposed, and there are a lot of places where you see it. So that's just super cool. I thought I would show you here on the passenger side because I haven't had a passenger in here since my son cleaned the car, so you can tell, it's much cleaner. But that carbon fiber is just so cool. Okay, well, I can hear my alarm going off in the other room. It's actually time for me to take the Alfa Romeo 4C in for an oil change. So that's where I'll be for the next couple hours.
Hi, this is your Alfa Romeo certified technician. Just wanted to do a quick walk around of your vehicle with you while we had you in today. When we pulled your vehicle in, we went ahead and set your tire pressures and topped up your fluid levels, so you're good to go there. I'll start out here up at your driver's side front tire. These front tires are measuring in at 7/32 seconds. They're in great shape. No need to replace them, no odd wear on them or anything. Moving into your front brakes, they are measuring in at 8 millimeter. Also in great shape, no need to replace them at this point. Moving back to your rear tires here. Rear tires are measuring in at 3/30 seconds. You can see they are pretty close to flush with these wear bars here. So I would advise replacement of the rear tires. Moving into the pads, you can kind of barely see that. That pad's measuring in at 6 millimeters, so you're good to go on the rear pads. Did want to make you aware, I'll see if I can show you. That's going to be a little tight to see on that video. Basically what's happened here is you can see there's a teeny tiny gap here in this arm. One of these locking screws has been left loose, and this arm is being allowed to shift back and forth a little bit. We might be able to correct this with just doing an alignment and torquing this stuff down. It might be a situation where, because this inner rod here is threaded, if these have moved back and forth enough, it can wallow that inner rod out. And if that's the case, we would have to replace that entire toe arm. So I am going to quote up the whole toe arm and then an alignment option as well, depending on which route you want to go there. Coming over here to your passenger side rear tire, again, 3/30 seconds on this tire, close to flush on that wear bar, 6 millimeters on those brakes. You can see those a lot better. And then this one is the one that I can show you really well. So this is actually the locking screw or nut for this control, or this tie rod arm here. As you can see, that is not even touching that lock point. It is finger tight. So that has been left loose. Again, same thing with this. It is causing play in that. You can see the play right there as I shift this back and forth. That can wallow that arm out internally, and if that's the case, there's nothing I can do to save that. It will just have to be replaced in order to hold that in place. So I will be getting you a quote on both of those. Moving up to your driver's side front tire here. This tire is or passenger side front tire, excuse me. This tire is measuring in at 6/30 seconds, so you are good to go there. And then brakes up here are measuring in at 8 millimeter as well. So those are in great shape on those brakes as well. I did review your service history with us, and we've actually never seen you here. So just based on talking with the advisor and knowing that your vehicle is on the track and that sort of thing, I would advise doing a 6-year service on your car. That's going to be a major bolt service, oil change, brake flush, tire rotation and balance, drive belt, and that major bolt service. That major bolt service is going to include all of the spots where your subframe bolts up to the carbon fiber chassis. What we will ultimately see is these cars will loosen up at those points, and if they loosen up too much, they will wallow out the bolts in that carbon fiber monocoque. And if it does that, there's nothing that can be done to save them. So at that point in time, you are pretty much out of car. So I would highly advise doing that. Also, the timing belt is due every 5 years on this car, so I did include that as well, because we have no way to know if that's been completed. And then also wanted to show you your drive belt is kind of glazed over here. So, and you do have what appears to be a little bit of cracking going on the outside edge, so would advise doing that belt as well. Other than those items, your vehicle's in great shape. Thank you for allowing me to work on it, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
At this point, I'll just point out what you probably already know as a savvy used car buyer, which is that one of the biggest profit centers at car dealerships nowadays is the service department. The service department actually makes the highest profit margin in a car dealership, and it represents almost 50% of total profits. So you'll have to decide where you come down on this. Are you the kind of person who wants to make sure every single possible thing is taken care of in your car, or are you the kind of person who just drives the car and enjoys it? Certainly there are examples of these cars hitting 100,000 miles with very few problems. I decided to defer these large maintenance items because I knew I'd only be owning this car for a couple years, and I felt there was minimal risk to a serious problem. However, if I were to own this car longer term, I might consider doing some of these items. That's for you to decide.